Well, hello, wealthy women. I tell you, I have one of the best interviews planned for you today. So imagine focusing your work and your studies on the medical side and becoming a neuroscientist. Amazing, right? What you would learn. And then imagine that as you're going along your journey, you're starting to discover more holistic ways of approaching life and merging the two best ideas together. Well, this is what my next interview is going to be all about. It's an amazing, beautiful story about pivoting and taking the best of what you know and merging them into one beautiful thing. So you will be so inspired and uplifted and learn some amazing ways to radically quantum leap your own experiences and goals and all of the things. So without saying too much more, because Alja here will be able to tell you herself all about this, I'm going to go ahead and pass over the video and microphone to you. And please tell us all about you. Tell us about your start, where you were starting from, what happened along the way, and how you made this transition, and how do you help people. And looking forward to all of this. So go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much for having me here first. So my name is Alja. You will find me on social media under Alja Podgornik or Dr. Alja Podgornik. I do hold a PhD in neuroscience. And really, my journey, my story starts in academia. So I grew up with both of my parents being scientists. And then as I went through my own education, I decided to pursue that path myself too, which led me to leave my home country. I'm originally from Slovenia, moved to England and pursue my studies there. And so for the next really 8 years of my life, I first completed my studies in neuroscience in London and then moved to Germany to do my PhD. So I really was in cutting edge, like science academia for 8 years, a little bit longer than that, really getting to understand how this system works, both the academia, but also Western medical, Western scientific system of thinking and understanding reality. And I also got to do research myself, which all is very illuminating and very important to understand. I think, especially in today's world where science has been put on a pedestal and oftentimes has been made into a new religion, which is a conversation in itself. But effectively, what happened was that, I at first really embraced this world completely. It felt very natural to me. I am a very spiritual person, but I'm also very, very analytical. So it worked very well for me. But what was happening simultaneously while being on this journey is also the fact that I was undergoing my own healing health issues. So, from literally the first day of when I was born, I had multiple issues that developed into chronic disorders where Western science told me and Western medicine told me, well, there's nothing you can do. And in, I think I was in my second year of my PhD, so it was 2019, when basically things took a sharp turn. My health started really deteriorating, and all of the issues that I was experiencing for most of my life just started getting a lot worse. And at that point, I had a choice to either try something different or stay in the same lane. And honestly, I have no idea how that would have ended. Like, I can guarantee you I would be on multiple medications right now, which is obviously not my reality, or it could have been worse than that. And luckily, at that point, two things happened prior to that. One was that, well, I understood how Western medicine thought, and I studied not only neuroscience, but extensively pharmacology. So, this is really the study of how drugs influence physiological systems. So, I got through multiple years of understanding neuropharmacology, like general pharmacology, and I started understanding that actually we didn't have nearly as good of an understanding of how these compounds work for many of them. And actually, for some of them, we had no idea why they worked. And every single one of them had very, very strong side effects, right? At least for some people. And I was like, okay, this is a little bit concerning.
Mhm.
And I also, about a year prior to this health crisis, went through my first spiritual awakening, which gave me a very different view of, what else is out there. So it was this really very interesting junction of simultaneously having experience in academia, being a scientist, being used to thinking that way, being disillusioned with the system while being within the system, and also having had this experience of spiritual awakening, which for me started with an ayahuasca journey and then really continued from there up until today. And so at that point, I basically decided that I had to take things into my own hands. I had to try something new. And I started exploring holistic naturopathic medicine, starting with Ayurveda. I studied Ayurveda on the side of my PhD for a while and worked with other naturopaths with multiple techniques. And in short, it worked, right? It took some time, as it tends to with these really deeply seated disorders, but it was for the first time in my life that about a year and a half into my healing, I was like, oh my God, like I am actually not having the issues anymore that I used to. Like all these things that I was told, for 20 years, there's nothing we can do. Best we can do is give you pills and creams and just treat symptoms. We're gone. And I was like, cool. So clearly, the path that I initially decided for in the Western scientific medical direction was not what I wanted, because, of course, I entered that field because I genuinely desired to help others. I genuinely desired to understand why we function the way we function, why we have certain issues, especially things like depression, anxiety. I was very interested in those things already in my high school years. And at that point, it became very clear to me that the way Western medicine thought about these issues was not entirely wrong, but was missing a huge, huge chunk, right? It was missing the entire emotional component, spiritual component, mental component, and even on the physical level, it did not take into account the interconnectedness of the body. It applied this very reductionistic, we have cardiovascular system and nervous system, and then we have whatever other tissue, and we treat each of them completely independently from one another, which is of course not how our body works, how anything else works. So I spent those years studying really deeply what is happening, and then at some point I was like, okay, I was in the middle of my PhD, but I already knew I wasn't going to continue in academia. And I decided I actually wanted to share what helps me heal with others. And this is basically how my first business was born. So I had no idea about business, right? I came from straight academia background. I barely knew marketing was a thing, And I was like, I'm going to have a business, which I think everybody here who is an entrepreneur listening to that, you probably can imagine how that
Oh,
went.
yes.
So, I got into entrepreneurship in this natural health area, and I had a very, fresh, naive view of what entrepreneurship was, in the sense that I thought entrepreneurship was all about strategy. So I put down on a barista level salary, 15,000 USD on a very extended payment plan, and I signed up for a coaching program. And at the beginning, it was amazing. I was learning all this strategy, and a lot of that strategy was genuinely very good. And I started applying it. And about 6 months after, I launched my first group program, and I managed to enroll 5 people, which is how many people I intended to enroll. So it was a total success. I was like, whoa, like I'm making so much money. Like this is going to be incredible. And then things took a turn.
Dun,
And
dun, dun.
exactly. And effectively, what happened was what I think a lot, if not most entrepreneurs experience. All my subconscious stuff came to the surface. My fears, my doubts. I was doubting the power of my work. I was doubting the power of transformation. I was doubting whether or not I can deliver what I promised I would deliver. I also started feeling quite sticky with, some strategies. And I was like, what do you mean you promised these things? Which, again, that can be also addressed in other ways. But I was also so scared that people would see that I'm a fraud. That was really like, in the end, what I discovered was one of the biggest things that was holding me back. But basically, everything came to the surface to the point that after a year, I couldn't deal with it anymore and I closed my business down. I burned everything to the ground and I was like, what just happened? Because, as someone who went to the best universities in the world, did very demanding programs, on top of that, had, multiple jobs, was at a university, competing at a university boxing team, like I knew how to get stuff done, right? And I was used to getting stuff done. Maybe it wasn't 100% every time, but it was at a very high level. I wasn't used to failing. I was used to working hard, but succeeding. And this to me was a very new experience of looking at something and being like, I got completely just, it makes you understand why people call these things blocks, right? You
Yeah.
just feel like you hit a wall in the middle of the road that initially looked like straight and empty, and this is where we're going. And you're like, bang,
Yes.
what, like, how do I move around this wall? And this is basically what my experience was. And that really prompted me to start diving very, 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 very deep into the psychological side of things. And this was a very interesting journey because afterwards I stopped my group program, but I still collaborated with a practitioner back home in Slovenia. So I would have certain just one-on-one clients occasionally that we would work with together, many of whom had very advanced issues, even like we're talking cancer, autoimmune, like things like that. So I got to really observe there as well this manifestation of the psycho-emotional side of things. And I started realizing also in natural health, similarly to business, oftentimes we go into healing and we're like, oh, it's all about the right habits. It's all about changing my diet. And then you go deeper into it and you start understanding how trauma affected you and how your beliefs affected you, how your emotions and suppressed anger and grief affect your body. And you're like, okay, actually, habits are like honestly a minor portion of that, right? And it was the same with business. So I was on this journey in parallel where I was really diving and studying very, very deeply my psyche. And I am a person, when I decide to go after something, when I'm interested in something, I go like not 100, but 300% in. Like my mom has called me obsessed multiple times in my life, which I used to think was a problem. And
Now
now
you
I'm like,
say thank you.
yeah, I'm like, yes, this is just how I am because I will go so incredibly deep. And I started studying, shadow work, hypnosis. I worked with and trained with Dr. Joe Dispenza's students. I really went deep into, Jungian psychology, like all of these different things of really understanding the psyche and what happened, like why did it happen. I was doing breath work for multiple hours a day, meditation for multiple hours a day. So all of those things over the span of about 2 years, and then observing myself, of course, studying myself really every single day and looking at my clients and people around me. And I started really, really understanding the connection between, of course, our childhood and upbringing and where we are in life today, right? And it's a multifaceted conversation in and of itself. But then what I was also seeing in my own business journey was that while a lot of these techniques were helpful and they gave me some level of transformation, none of them actually helped me break through. And
Mhm.
I was very confused. I still had the same fears. I could see them. I could see that they didn't make sense, but that didn't help me move through them, right? I did mindset courses, I did loads of journaling, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is where my problem lies. But that didn't mean it went away, right?
Yeah.
And even with breath work and deep level meditation and certain somatic practices, they were a lot better in accessing that because they can actually access the subconscious level. However, they weren't very specific. I would go into a breathwork session and kind of hope something shifts. I would go into a meditation session and hope something shifts. And there were sessions where there were profound results. And then there were many, many, many more sessions where nothing happened. And I just got out very frustrated. And really, I was reaching the point where I was like, what is happening? Because, then on top of that, that's combined with following other people online and some business coaches, entrepreneurs who are like, I scaled to 10K months within the first 3 hours of being in business. Like jokes aside, it really sounds like that sometimes. And you're like, what am I doing wrong? And
Yeah.
I know that this experience is actually shared like between most of entrepreneurs. Like this is the vast majority of people who go on this journey, and I understand exactly why this is the case. But back then I just thought I was like something was wrong with me.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I never thought I wouldn't be able to do it. I always knew that I had what it took, but I was just like, wait, what am I missing? Like there's got to be something I'm missing. And basically, long story short, eventually I came across it was an online masterclass from a person who was teaching like a different form of subconscious reprogramming. And at that point, I was like, lol, it's a free masterclass. Cool, let's sign up and see. She had, cool marketing. I was like, this sounds different. So I went, and that masterclass blew my mind because in it, she talked about a very specific subconscious reprogramming method that went so much deeper than anything I had tried up until that point. And what I mean by that is that, yes, it took into consideration your childhood, but it also took into consideration your entire ancestry, your past life experiences, and it had a very specific method to also test and prove which subconscious beliefs you hold. And I was like, whoa, that is incredible. And on top of that, at the end of that masterclass, she led us into this reprogramming meditation. And within about 5 minutes, I was in a theta brainwave state, an altered state of consciousness, right? Which is required to access the subconscious. And if you're doing long Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations, they're all aimed at getting you into this theta brainwave. But the difference was that I was doing those meditations for over a year at that point, every day, combined with like very expensive energy healing sessions. And I maybe got into deep theta after half an hour every third time, max. And here I was in a theta brainwave in about 5 minutes. And I was like, what is this thing? So I basically signed up and did a short program that was focused around, certain like elements of entrepreneurial blocks, although it was quite vague still. And in those couple of weeks of doing that course, more stuff shifted for me than before in 2 years. Because I started being able to systematically assess exactly which beliefs I held. I started being able to reach theta brainwave reliably within a few minutes every single time, which meant that I could be reprogramming beliefs in as little as 15 minutes a day, which, doing then one a day is very doable for everyone, which sitting in a meditation for 2 hours a day is not realistic for everyone, right? And in about like 2-3 weeks, I was like, okay, this thing is insane. Like I've never seen anything like that. And the benefit of before exploring so many techniques in depth was that I knew when I came across something different. And so I signed up to get certified in this method and started applying it to myself. And I will never forget the moment when that really drastically shifted things for me, because one of the biggest things that I was having issues with up until that point was getting real clarity on who I was in the business space, which again, a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. And until you have that, good luck doing anything with your business, right? It's like, it's a prerequisite.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we got to figure this out. Like, why am I so quote unquote confused around who I am? Like, that makes no sense, because if someone says, I don't know who I am in a business world, you're telling me you don't know who you are. Right? But that tells me that you're not actually connected with your higher self, with your intuition, because who you are is there. Right? It's not something you need to invent, right? You just need to connect to it. And for some reason, your subconscious is not allowing you to see who you are. And so I went into a reprogramming session on myself. And what we got down to is the fear I talked about before, which was this fear that people will see me as a fraud. And it wasn't just that people would see me that way. I had a belief I am a fraud. So on some level, I believed that. And then when I went into a reprogramming session, I basically saw it came from a very deep past life wound, right? Which I would have never figured out through journaling. I would have never found the origin of that event, where I basically failed at a task that I really thought I could handle. And as a result of that, my children were taken from me because I was a healer in a past life. And by the way, a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs are here to heal. And that can be through business, that can be through, but they're here to raise consciousness, which is healing today. And a lot of them carry this stuff because most healers today were healers before. Like, that's not your first rodeo, especially incarnating in this time and space. And I saw this thing and I was like, okay, we are ready to be done with that. And as I lifted this, first of all, it felt like literally like, 50 kilos lifted off of my shoulders. Like, I was like, whoa, like sometimes you really get this like palpable change. But the second thing that happened that blew my mind was that about 10 minutes after, as I'm walking back home, bam, I get crystal clarity on who I meant to serve, what niche I meant to go into. That evening, after about 6 months of complaining how much I hate social media and content creation, I had 2 weeks worth of content ready within one afternoon, right? I started actually completely seeing myself differently in business. And at that point, I completely shifted my business to what I do now, which is basically working with spiritual entrepreneurs and helping them really advance and expand their business through subconscious reprogramming, removing different levels of blocks, because there is so much that can happen in business that affects visibility, that affects know, like, trust factor, that affects selling, and of course money as well. And it is just something that I saw with myself can so radically transform your life. And one of the example was recently where I did a lot of work on my visibility and fears around being seen, where I went from basically being completely invisible in the online space to, in 3 weeks, having 80 people come into my offers through like certain opportunities, now landing this incredible interview, landing multiple podcasts, like summit appearances and so on, in a span of a couple of weeks. And I was like, this is insane. Like, not only does it attract different opportunities to you, right, when you shift your frequency, which is what happens when you shift your beliefs, but also you start showing up differently, right? You start saying yes to different opportunities. And honestly, like, since I started doing this, things have been on the up the entire time. And the best thing is, every time when there's an issue, quote unquote, I know how to walk myself through it. So it's really this continuous, very systematic expansion. So I keep saying long story short. That's been a long story long, but I think we finished
It's
it
a
here.
good story though. It's like I want more. It's not long enough. It's perfect. It's beautiful. And everything that you said is so profound, because so many of us, what you mentioned before, how habits, right? We think, oh, I just have a bad habit. I'm supposed to work out, let's say exercise every day, and I never keep my word to myself. And so many of us are really staying on that very simple surface level and criticizing ourselves for bad habits. It's just, I don't have willpower, or I'm something, and not even realizing it is actually coming from such a deeper place, and we don't even know to look or how to look for it. And I love that you can help people with this, because one of the biggest things also, majority of women I talk to, myself included, when I first started, is always this feeling of an imposter syndrome. I think it's probably the number one first thing that comes up. And then second to that is probably the visibility, getting comfortable with being able to share. And what you're saying about being able to basically quantum leap into transformation with the way that you are doing it, having had all of this beautiful, very amazing academia and profound study, self-study, and you have such a availability of wealth of information to compare it to, that I love this for everyone listening, because I don't know anybody who has been through so much complex learning and studying and achievements, and to be able to come and then see a different approach and be able to say, hey, this is what is working, and I know how to get there for myself and bring myself back. I know what is working, and now to be able to help transform people that want those kind of breakthroughs, and have basically just been really being very difficult and hard on themselves, thinking they're somehow failing. That's such a surface approach, but it can keep people stuck forever, where they never get out from under it to release their gifts, to show up in the way they want to show up. And I love that you are just an amazing healer, is really the greatest word, right? You are able to heal people quickly and effectively, and in a way that helps them, shine in their best ways. And then what you're saying about attracting, right? As soon as you get in that mindset, I absolutely agree with you. It is a mind shift, really, and it's never going back. And once you have that mind shift, everything does start to line up differently, and it's like proof. You have that proof, and you're like, okay, and like it's just an amazing way of realizing that, and you've done all the work for people can come to you and they don't have to do all of that legwork that you put in. You're just able to show up with the skill set now that you have achieved after all of those years of going through it. And on another note, I just love your fact that you like what burn the bridges, so to speak, because it wasn't right until you knew it was right. Like you were showing up in such a way to serve authentically, ethically, in the most loving kind of way, that you stopped something until you knew it was right for yourself and for others. And so maybe share a little bit about, if someone wanted to work with you, what would that look like for them? Like, can you give us a little idea of your programs? Like how can you help them transform?
Yeah, 100%. So there are a couple of different levels at which we can work with this. So the beautiful thing about a technique I am using and teaching you is that I don't just give you meditations to do it on yourself. I teach you how to do it. For me, the biggest the biggest part that is so important is to see people come out of work with me with actual tools that they can keep using for the rest of their lives. And this was something that I found, I worked with an excellent energy healer last year. She was absolutely phenomenal. And once I no longer worked with her, I wouldn't see the same progress. I wasn't taught how to do it myself just because of the way she was using her very intuitive methodology, where there wasn't like a clear structure behind it, right? But where I teach you basically a structure, a methodology behind doing this, which means you can take it and apply it to yourself. So, really, all of my programs that have a little bit higher touch have that incorporated into them. And in every single course that you're going to do with me, you learn what I mentioned before, how to test for beliefs, which is one of the most fascinating things you're ever going to explore, because then you start testing which beliefs you have and you'll be like, oh my God, what happened here? So it's just fun. But basically, I have some. So, first of all, at the intro level, of course, social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and I have my private Facebook group where I do trainings pretty much every week. You get access to free resources like pretty much every day, working day of the week, because we're not crazy here and we don't work on weekends. But
Amen.
yeah, I'm just like, there are some things I'm not
Yeah,
available for in this
that's
industry.
right. Boundaries are important. Absolutely.
Mm. And so then I have basically also two lower level programs that are self-paced, which are, one is aimed specifically at visibility. As we talked about, visibility is one of the most like, I worked with a lot of business coaches and is oftentimes a topic that is conveniently avoided. You talk about sales, you talk about marketing, you talk about
Mhm.
launching, you talk about offer creation, but visibility is, for many people, visibility can happen very spontaneously, all of a sudden, out of nowhere. Like, one of your posts goes viral, or you happen to be in a niche, like in a right niche at the right time, and you gain a lot of followers, your business starts exploding. You can basically make pretty much all of your money off of like a single platform. That happens for some percentage of those people, right? So I haven't seen many programs that really teach you like even a step-by-step strategy. Of course, that's a part of it. But visibility is also one of those areas that is so deeply affected by subconscious beliefs. And the extent to which that goes, most people have no idea, especially for women, as we talked about. Yes, there's imposter syndrome. Yes, there's inadequacy, which pretty much everybody's conditioned into, even though women more than men. But then also, I've worked with women who were afraid of being seen because they were afraid subconsciously of being lusted after, because they or their ancestors had very bad experiences with men. I worked with women who thought they were too ugly to show their face on the subconscious level. So there are also, and then there's a whole other thing, but I basically guide you in this self-paced program through like all of these, so you understand exactly how your subconscious mind works. You go and you really look at what beliefs you actually hold. You muscle test if you have any of those beliefs, and then I give you tools to reprogram that yourself. So that's a really, really wonderful course. Like I've got amazing reviews for it. So I would totally recommend if visibility is something you're working on. The other one, it's called aura detox. And that is like foundation work that every single one of my one-on-one clients goes through, like non-negotiably. And that is basically to clear your subconscious mind of what I call junk. So what a lot of people try to do is reprogram subconscious mind without first eliminating things that are really keeping everything like kind of dingy. And I kind of say this is like, you trying to plant seeds in a garden where the soil is full of toxins, it hasn't been prepared, or, sometimes like for some people who have really like strong subconscious beliefs, it's just straight up throwing seeds in concrete, it's not going to grow.
Yeah.
And there are specific emotions, frequencies, experiences that really, really deeply affect the subconscious. And when we talk about subconscious, we're talking about three things. We're talking about the brain, right? The neural connections and the physical. But what we're also talking about is the nervous system as a whole, which is of course basically an interface between the etheric and the physical, right, in your body. And we're talking about your energy body, because each belief, your identity is basically a collection of beliefs, which means it's a collection of frequencies, right? Every belief has a frequency. And there are certain emotions that come with that, certain frequencies, such as resentment, rejection, regret. So rejection means on a subconscious level identifying with failure, right? Regrets means you're stuck in the past. Rejection is resentment is basically, that can be also anger, jealousy, is an energetic memory of a past wound. And what you do is to self-protect, you hold on to resentment, which on the energetic level, you're saying, I'm pushing this person away so that they can't hurt me again, right? So all of these things, however, constrict your nervous system. And when your nervous system is constricted, you're closed off to receiving, right? You can just imagine, right? If you're holding like this hard together, it's like what, nothing, even if things are like waving in front of your face, you're not letting anything in.
Yeah.
So that course is really aimed at you cleansing these things out, which absolutely massively enhances your ability to manifest, but it also increases your ability to feel ease, becoming magnetic. You become so much more solid in yourself because now your energy is actually all gathered here and now, rather than being stuck in like, old past hurts that you haven't sorted out, or like identifying as failure or being stuck in the past. And this is groundwork. It's really essential. So those are the two courses you can immediately sign up for when you come to like any of my social media. But then what I also have, of course, right now is one-on-one high-end coaching. And this is really like, this is for people who want to move very fast and in a very personalized way. And one-on-one, as it always is, it is going to depend exactly on what your needs are and where you are in business. But there we basically do very deep one-on-one work, which looks a little bit different because you're working with practitioner. So that means we both go into theta brainwave, right, which is the subconscious, accessing the subconscious. And then we do what is called a digging process, digging for beliefs, which is identifying what is the root cause of a situation that you're trying to resolve. And these journeys oftentimes takes us into very like past lives, ancestral lines, deep into childhood. When we are in theta brainwave, we can remember and see things that we may have forgotten. We get access to those memories that got suppressed. There are sometimes deep, like big emotional releases. Sometimes we have relationships to clear with, people from the past that are actually affecting our ability to, let's say, make money or to be visible.
Yes,
And this
exactly.
is the work we do together. So each journey is different. Each journey is incredibly, incredibly profound. It lasts about 90 minutes each because it's very important to see it all the way through. But there we meet either weekly or bi-weekly for these sessions. And then in the interim, of course, people also get access to my basically reprogramming vault so they can do practices in the interim. And what is really exciting is that about in the next month, I will be launching also my signature group program, which is really going to be designed for entrepreneurs to do like step-by-step work on all areas that are necessary for business success. So there's going to be subconscious reprogramming for visibility, for know, like, trust factor, which is going to involve, trusting yourself, like really becoming very deeply authentic, right? Because that's, if you want ideal clients in your world, you got to first express yourself as you are, and speaking your truth, very hard for most people for a lot of reasons. And then we're going to go, of course, also into money and other things there, but it's going to be 3 to 4 month program. I'm still flashing it out, where we're really going to go step by step through all of that. And I am so incredibly excited to launch that because there's nothing like that
Yeah.
out there, like at all, because
No.
the methodology I use is mostly applied for actual physical healing, right? Because it's an energy-based reprogramming modality. So very few people apply it in business. And there's no such program that I know of. So I'm so stoked to launch that and guide people through it. So
I
that's
love
basically what's in my world right now.
love. Okay. And say where the main website or URL that people should find you at. What is, like, if they had to go to one, what is the best place for them to find you at?
So I am in the process of building my website. So right now I'm most active on social media. I would say probably the best place to connect right now would be Facebook and my private Facebook group
Okay, great.
and jumping onto my email list.
Okay.
But there will be, we can put in the show notes when the actual website becomes also
Oh yes, we will
relevant.
definitely do that. But maybe
Yeah.
give the Facebook name so that they can find you.
Yeah. So this Facebook group is called Subconscious Reprogramming for Business Success. So you
Perfect.
can find it. And otherwise, you can find me under Alja Podgornik. And
Okay,
just, you can send me a friend request, anything to chat with me. And there's also a link to my group in my profile.
perfect. Now, did I tell you, beautiful women out there, that this was going to be profound? I am so excited, everything that you just shared, because a lot of us, we hear things, commonalities that we're hearing is imposter syndrome, self-sabotage, fear of failure, um, not open to abundance, or whatever it is. And I think for many of us, because we just don't understand that naturally, that there is such a deeper level to this, and we're just so caught up in giving ourselves a hard time, when really we're not really the problem. There's just a block there, and I love that that block can get cleared. It's so important. And we did speak about this. I had a personal experience with a coach, because I had a money block, and it had a lot to do with another person in my life that did wrong, and I grew in some sort of, like you were saying, some sort of resentment and fear, and I locked my ability off, and I couldn't see it. And what I am just trying to say is, so often we think we really know ourselves so fully, and we should be able to figure this stuff out by ourselves. And I love that we think that, and it's good to have that high esteem. But you, right there, we need help. We need healers, we need coaches, we need mentors, because we don't have the always the eye to see us objectively, our own selves objectively. And not only that, there is a major skill set. Just think about everything you just heard on how complicated all of the systems are, which is so beautiful to know that everything is integrating. But the average person here is not a master of these things. So, how can we even know sometimes how to help ourselves best, right? This is why it is important to make this investment, whether it is money or time or efforts. Make this investment in yourself to do the work, or have the help to get the work done. Because once you clear the block, you're like a marathon runner now, because you are going to quantum leap. And it did happen to me. I had a coach within 15 minutes. She helped me recognize my block. I cleared it. I saw it. I'm like, wow, how did I not see that? Then once I recognized it, I knew then what steps to put in place to fix it and move myself forward. And it happened that quickly. And so and I was blocked for 2 years, by the way. I was blocked for 2 years. I had no idea what my problem was. I was just mad at myself. I was calling myself, you used to be ambitious. What's your problem now? I was self criticizing myself. And yet it actually really had not much to do with me. And it even went a little bit farther back than this one person, but I was never going to be able to connect those dots. I promise you. And I'm very self reflective. So when I say, please reach out, I mean it, because you're going to be doing yourself a beautiful gift of self love, and it will change your life going forward for the better. Even if there's a little bit of there's a little bit of growth spurts maybe that happen, but these are going to be worthy ones and get you out of your own way. So I love this. Love it, love it. Okay, so a few success questions before we wrap up our interview, because you covered so much of some of the success questions I was going to ask. So I might have to flip through. I had them in order, like, this is a good question. And now I'm like, nope, 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 we covered that. So, like, there was a question on how to get over your fear of visibility. I'm not even going to ask you that one. I think we covered that one. So, okay, let's go with this. If you could only choose one answer, what is the number one way that building your own business has enriched your life? And why would you encourage other women to do the same for themselves?
It absolutely forced me to really claim who I was. Building business that is a personal brand is not for everyone. Building a business, full stop, is not for everyone because it's going to test every element of who you think you are, how much you think you believe in yourself, how stubborn you're willing to be when stuff is not working, how much do you believe in yourself even when everybody else is telling you that you should give up. You're also gonna find yourself oftentimes, honestly, quite isolated, especially if you're moving into being an entrepreneur from, working in a normal job and being surrounded by people who don't have the same ambitions. And the truth is that if you're going after anything extraordinary in life, which I think a lot of business owners and healers are, you have to realize that the baseline for an average person today is very low. So you're shooting far, 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 far above that, right? Especially if you're one of those people like myself who wants exceptional things in all areas, my health, my relationships, my business, right? You're reaching for something that a lot of people will tell you, like, why are you trying so hard? This makes no sense. Like, why are you going there? Like, you're exaggerating, right? And you need to really, really, really own and claim your desires, believe in yourself unconditionally, and develop very exquisite discernment also who to listen to, who not to listen to, and probably cleanse your circles of people that surround you as well. These have all been my own experiences. So it's really forced me to look at who I am and what I want,
Mm.
and then make sometimes very hard choices to get those things. And I would say that it's helped me grow more than anything else. It's helped me grow way more than my PhD helped me grow, way more than my university helped me grow. And I said a few months ago that even if I had to close down my business today, even if I never made another euro from it, it was worth it. Because the things I learned about myself, anything is going to be easier going forward because of
I
clearing the things I've
Yeah.
cleared in this journey.
I love that answer. And I also love what you were talking about before about like rooting out all of the, let's just say weeds and toxins in the garden. It's like spring cleaning, of your own self, right? So that you can create a beautiful new design in the way that you love and want to go forward in the world.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that is so true. Um, Building your own business is one of the ways that you'll be able to really redesign and reprioritize things for yourself. And I agree with you. I love my college education as well, but the two things that really gave me the most growth uh, was, of course, building my own business and traveling around the world, especially solo. Like those two
Yeah.
things, I encourage all women. That's why all of my programs include a travel bonus, because I want women to go out there and not only build their businesses, but travel, because it's just such an empowering thing, right? So, okay, so I have another question for you. You are so in touch with all of the things, obviously, that really work to help you grow forward. But do you have like a daily morning practice, like a morning routine or an evening routine? And what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So in the morning, I normally get up around like 6 o'clock or so, depends a little bit on the time of the year. And then I do some form of a movement practice. So recently, I've been actually doing a lot of Qigong because I've been working a lot with my fascia, but something to get me breathing, moving my body so that, because if I sit in my meditation right after getting up, I'll go into theta brainwave very quickly, but then I'll go into delta, which is sleep.
Oh,
So yeah, exactly. So I normally do 15, 20 minutes of something like that. And then I will sit down in my own reprogramming meditation, because the reprogramming meditation we work with, it's really focused on connecting to creator consciousness. So it's not just, walking down and looking at your subconscious. We're going to that. It's a whole system and philosophy behind it, but we are connecting to creator himself. You can call that consciousness God, any, it doesn't matter. It's not religion based, but I always start my days connecting to creator to kind of get myself really like in alignment, right? Because it's so easy to get caught up in all the little like things that you think matter. And then you sit down for 15 minutes, go into theta brainwave, connect to creator, and you're like, oh, why was I worrying about that thing, right? And so
Yes,
sometimes
yes.
it's 15 minutes, sometimes it's an hour, depending on like how my schedule allows. But that will normally be a thing. And then about 3-4 times a week, I do some other form of movement. I do a lot of bouldering, climbing, but also go to the gym because movement is something that just for my body and my like also astrology, human design, whatever you look at, I need a lot of it. So that's also a very big part. And then I basically start with my day, of course, like food and breakfast and all those things as well. But some sort of movement and breathing, and then, yeah, going into theta brainwave.
And I love what you said about connecting to creator energy. And I absolutely agree with you. I start my day that way as well. And it just made me want to say something, regardless to all of you out there, regardless of your spiritual connection. When you tap into that bigger thing and it's creator, then this should be able to immediately start to help you self-love, because you are you are amazing as you are. There's nothing, it's part of your journey what you're going through, and just remember you're of creator energy, and that is beautiful. So like if you're having a hard day, just remember that, to check in, and just remind yourself that you are a work of art, beautiful art. So in the making, in creation, right? Okay, let me just ask you, for somebody maybe who is a little unfamiliar with getting in touch with their soul's purpose or their spiritual connection, what would you suggest for them to get started on their own, doing their own thing?
So a complete beginner.
Let's say complete beginner. Yeah.
Start observing what you do and start asking why you do it. This may be a
Mhm.
little bit of an unusual answer. I could tell you, yes, go do meditation, but that's the purpose of it, right? Um, I am, as I said, I'm very analytical. I deeply believe, I know that this universe is ruled by the law of cause and effect. And if you want to start getting in touch yourself, what that means is you get to know yourself. And getting to know yourself, a lot of people, still see spirituality as this like, you know, love and light kind of deal. And that's a part of it for sure. Like ideally, we want to learn to spend more and more time with that frequency. And that's like, we are humans, right? We exist with everything there is. To me, spirituality is wanting to see the truth. And so you starting to look at who you are, what you do on a daily basis, and starting to ask, why do I do it? This habit, is this habit mine? Or did I just start doing it because I saw my parents or everybody else is doing it? Do I truly enjoy what I'm doing in my day to day? So I remember, when I was a kid, my parents were very adamant about me doing sports, which was excellent. Like it taught me that movement's always been a part of my life and it always will be, but they never checked in with me if I liked the form of movement I was doing. So I was
Mhm.
going through the motion for a lot of my childhood training a sport that one day, I think I was 12, I was like, why am I doing this thing? Like
That's
I'm not even
right.
having fun.
I
And
love
there's so
that.
many other things. So and I've seen this with people, with not just the clients, the wonderful clients I work with, but people in my life. A lot of people go through the motions without stopping and saying, do I truly enjoy what I do? And it's a whole other conversation that sometimes people don't know what it feels like to enjoy things. But getting intentional in this sense, right? And assessing where you are, you always need to understand a very simple thing, that where you are in your life is a reflection, first and foremost, of your identity, which, as we said, is a collection of your subconscious beliefs and thus frequency. And it's that informs how you feel, how you think, and how you act. And so everything you see in your reality, what you attract into your reality, is a reflection of that on some level. And some of it, as we talked about, could be here from past lives. Some of them could have been passed on from your ancestors. And this is what the reason I'm saying this is because this we never want to go into, you know, the toxic spiritual, like, oh, you manifested something bad, therefore there's something wrong with you. Yeah, like you didn't
Yeah.
do enough of this, or like that is just
Yeah.
such pile of bullshit.
Yes.
um that we know, also useless. But being cognizant of the fact that, like, okay, if frequency attracts frequency, there is this frequency attracting this on some level. Why? Right?
Yes.
And
Hmm.
really observing your actions, observing your environment is the easiest way to begin doing it, because it's the most tangible. So start observing what you do and start asking yourself the question why. And then there's also plenty of resources on the internet to really go down the rabbit holes of
That's
understanding, like,
true.
you know, why you're doing things.
But I love that you mentioned the one question, because I ask it of myself all the time, whether it's related to the type of physical fitness I want to do, or the way I want to run my business, or how I want to, travel, whatever it might be. One of my go-to questions now is, what is the most enjoyable way of doing this? And it is so beautiful and freeing, and giving yourself permission. And you already are basically saying, I love myself and want to respect myself and take good care of myself, because that's the kind of question you'll ask yourself when you're in that mode. And just by asking yourself that type of question already puts you in that frame of mind. And I think it's I love that you said that. Question everything, basically question everything, and then ask yourself, what do you want? What is the most enjoyable way that you want to do whatever it is that you want to do? How do you want to design your life? And sometimes we think that we don't have the choices because we have obligations, or you know people expect certain things from us. No, I'm telling you, more and more people are just wanting to be able to create their own life, and they can, and it's possible. So I love this answer. I have to tell you, this is one of my most enjoyable. They're all enjoyable, but I love this interview so much because of bridging the gap from the two different sides and perspectives, and coming to where you are now in such a beautifully developed and clear path that you have made for yourself as well as for others. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. That's been
My
an absolute pleasure.
my pleasure. And please listen to this interview again and again, and reach out. There is so much waiting for you on the other side of getting in front of, or through, or beyond some of the limiting beliefs that you are not responsible for, or you don't know how to access or get through. There's just so much openness and sunshine waiting for you ahead on your journey, whatever that is in your life. And it can be for anything, your business, relationship, health, whatever it is. It is so important for you to make these connections in getting to know who you are, so that you can have these quantum leaps. And so I just appreciate your expertise in this field. It's magnificent. And yes, so all right. Well, wealthy women, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this beautiful interview. And reach out, get in touch, and keep going for your dreams. If it's in your heart, it's meant for you. So never doubt that. Just figure it out. And there's people here all around you that can help you on your journey. So just keep going forward. So bye for now. Okay.